Hello, everyone. Very, very good morning, and a good morning on the Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock. And I think a lot of us in the room would be recovering from the Dreamfest from yesterday, I hope. So look forward to kind of speaking with everyone. So the reason why we are here is there has been an overload of DX in Dreamforce 17. But what we are trying to do is simplify it, break it down a little bit, show you from a step-by-step process what can be done, how it can be done, and how some of the leaders in the industry have already done it, or at least being the early adopters, what they have achieved. And that's the reason why we have Ram from Schneider Electric, one of the most complex, the largest implementations in Salesforce. And when we talk about implementation, we do not talk about obviously it's number of users, but we are also talking about how they have kind of really stretched and made the platform and took the platform to the next level. And we have Navneet, who's our account manager, but also he is championing the DX adoption with our existing clients. So without further ado, I would want to kind of kick it off. That's what we want to do. But just before that, just by a show of hands, I just wanted to understand how many people in the audience have kind of either spun up a scratch org or they have dabbled with a scratch org? About 30% or so, or maybe 25% or so. And how many of you would want to do a pilot or want to kind of include DX as a part of your deployment or a development team and so on and so forth? Perfect. So this is what we have seen. So about 80% want to do something, and 20% have already kind of done something. So this is a quick overview of who we are, what we do. So in terms of AutoRabbit is a continuous delivery platform, specifically purpose-built for Salesforce, and especially for Force.com. And we, just to kind of give you a sense, we have done close to about our platform does about 5 billion records that we do a data load every year across our clients, and more than a million deployments and check-ins and so on and so forth. And and what we do is obviously get the release velocity faster and all the other stats. And we have a global footprint, offices in India, Australia, New Jersey, and we are headquartered out of San Francisco. And these are some of the market clients, especially some of these clients. We are doing some work around DX right now, and Schneider is a testament to that in terms of what we have done. We have done a quick pilot, and obviously Navneet will be showing the demo too. And finally, moving on. This is an interesting slide. Actually, last year we presented this slide. The reason why I brought it up again is that we did entire data crunching of all the demos, interactions that we had in 2016 and 2015. And we were collecting data in 2013 too. What we saw was the acceleration of adoption in terms of the release management, either from a version control standpoint or CI standpoint, was rapidly increasing. For example, as you see, it was less than one CI adoption, or at least the start of CI in any continuous integration in any clients. They were less than 1%. It went up to 3%. Now we are close to about 10%. We did not do the numbers this time. But what we have incidentally seen is version control. For example, 50% of the clients that we onboard have version control already, versus in 2015, only 5% had it. So AutoRabbit would go in there, then the client would, then our customer would buy version control. And this, for a Java environment or any other environment, it's kind of unheard of. So just by a show of hands, how many would have version control already that you're kind of checking in code? Awesome. So the same number of hands, if you kind of look back 1 and 2 years back in 2016, 2015, they were like about half or even 1/10 of it in terms of the check-in codes. And finally, we will just move on. And one of the other things that we track our customers, the ecosystem also, is in terms of the maturity. So we continuously do maturity analysis for our clients in terms of where they are, obviously where they want to go, and what their goals are, and as-is and to-be status of their environments. And obviously, the goal is to kind of move from one step to another, further the development process and do it more faster. And obviously we have broken it down into several ways in terms of be it do they do data integration, do we have a version control enabled, and how mature is the version control enabled? Are you just using it as a backup, or do you kind of integrate it with your continuous integration, continuous delivery process? And so DX is stretching what we just saw from a maturity standpoint, and what is happening right now is earlier, maybe 5 years or 10 years back, if you look at it, there was just a product. We did not have API, so the Force.com framework was not there. Then it kind of percolated down to, say, DevOps or development orgs or dev pros and stuff like that. Now DX is even more smaller. When I say smaller, I mean to say it's a lot more bite-sized chunks of code, bite-sized chunks of information, metadata, and data that can be processed by the developers a lot more faster. And that's the fundamental rationale for continuous delivery or continuous integration itself, right? It's like checking in small pieces of code on a frequent basis. So that's what DX is enabling. And without taking too much time, I think everybody has heard a lot of DX, so I would not kind of talk much about it. So, and I will hand it over to Ram, who can just talk about a little bit more about Schneider and what they do.
Sure. Thanks, Vishnu. So, I am Ram Iyer. I'm the principal architect at Schneider Electric for the Salesforce implementation that we have there. Before I move on to what we do, just a quick overview of what Schneider Electric is. We are the global specialists in energy management. We are present across the globe with about 150,000 users, employees globally. We are a 25 billion euro company, and our businesses are spread across industry, partners, infrastructure, IT, etc. Now, moving on to what we do with Salesforce in Schneider. We have an implementation which is about 7 years old. We've been mainly using it for CRM. And it spans across multiple clouds. So we have the Sales Cloud implementation, we have Services Cloud, we have communities for PRM, and we have field services, we use the Marketing Cloud. So we are almost using all pieces of the Salesforce CRM implementation. And we have about 43,000 users that are using Salesforce today. Of which about 20,000 are on the Sales Cloud and about 2,500 customer care agents, etc. We have a few custom applications as well, with about 20,000 users using that, and about 8+ communities, including customer communities and partner communities. And we also use about 30+ App Exchange products, including ServiceMax and Marketo, etc. So with that said, to manage all this, we have a development team size of about 100 developers, which are present primarily in India and a few other places across the globe. And with the development team size of that, which was that large, it was becoming very important for us to really embark the CI journey, because what started becoming important, I think move on to the next slide, was that with the CI journey, So what was happening was that we had a lot of teams that were working in disconnected modes in terms of the fact that because they were globally present, we had a lot of parallel development that needed to be done with a lot of global programs that were needed to be run. And because these developers were spread across the globe, it was becoming very difficult because there was very often a situation where we would have developers that would overwrite each other's code because they're really not talking to each other, etc. We also, when we started 7 years ago, we used to have a very long release cycle. So we would have a release cycle which was about three releases in a year, which would span across 4 months each. And that started getting really, that was okay initially, but as we started moving on and we got more users and more projects getting onboarded, the need for building a faster release cycle or shorter release cycle started becoming more and more important. We also wanted better traceability of our release package. So what was happening earlier was that when we started off, we were using chain sets and some bit of ant migration. And the developers would just do their development as and how they wanted it. And at the time of going to UAT, it used to become a mad scramble to collate all your components and make sure that you have everything in place. So now with the CI, we no more have to do that mad scramble. We make sure all our code is checked into version control, and then you're able to really retrieve all your components, and you know exactly who's done what. With all that said, because earlier we used to waste a lot of time in the component consolidation, which has now come down, we are now able to use our time more effectively in doing better quality-related activities like automated testing or static code analysis, et cetera. And we've also built in a lot of governance in terms of what components go where, who does this, and our environments are better controlled now. Now, with all that in place, why do we really need DX? So in spite of this whatever we have done in CI, the irony of the situation was that everything works great from the time you finish your development till you go to production. But the irony is, it's actually broken right at the beginning. And why is it broken right at the beginning is because we have sandboxes where you can have developers do their development. And Salesforce does provide you developer sandboxes. But it's not so easy to really spin up a new developer sandbox for any development. So what we landed up doing was we would have one sandbox for a group of developers, and they do all their development for every user story in that one sandbox, and you check it into different feature branches, and then it goes into integration and thereon. But what was happening because of that was that because it was a single sandbox, even though you have different pieces of code getting checked into different feature branches, it's still the same code. So if developer 1 makes change to a code and developer 2 makes change to the same class, and you check it into a different feature branch, your second feature branch still has the code of the first feature. So the code that you have checked in is really not mutually exclusive. So then we revisited this, and finally what we landed up doing was we would have just one branch per sandbox. And that would, again, mean that each developer or a group of developers that are working on the same sandbox land up checking in code into the same feature branch. So it's really not a feature branch, it's a sandbox branch, right? So but we had to continue doing that because it was really very difficult for us to spin up a new sandbox. And now with DX, I think a lot of those problems are really solved. What are we doing with DX now is we will now be able to take a user story from Jira and map that to a Scratch org, which is then mapped to a Jira story. A Jira story mapped to a Scratch org, which is then mapped to a feature branch in Git. And this whole cycle is much more neater now because we are able to now link our feature branches to the Jira stories, and whatever you develop and push into your feature branch now is purely that particular feature that you are developing. So with that said, it's really good for us because now the piece that was really broken in our CI journey is now fixed because now we are able to literally separate out each Jira story or each user story with the feature branch and make sure that our development cycle is, our feature branches are really mutually exclusive. With that said, I let Navneet show us a quick demo on how we are actually doing this on the AutoRabbit tool.
Thanks, Ram. Sorry. So I was talking about giving an easy UI to DX. So AutoRabbit is integrated with DX with an easy UI. So let me show you the workflow in 3 phases. So the first phase is more of provisioning. So as you see the ALM on your left-hand side, so whenever the ALM user story is assigned to a developer, he can quickly get onto AutoRabbit, register the hub, create a scratch arc from it, load the metadata, and then perform the continuous integration. So let me show it to you in live. So this is the AutoRabbit interface for DX. So let's see how can we move from CLI to clicks. So these are a few of the commands that you have to understand before you have DX in place. So this is only for DX. I'm not even talking about any version controlling commands so far. So these are the list of commands to get integrated with DX. So I will showcase how all these commands can be a few clicks within AutoRabbit. So assuming that I have configured my Jira within AutoRabbit, and I've also configured my orgs and my version controlling systems so that I can go ahead and spin a branch or a master branch from AutoRabbit right away. So here is DX. The first part of it is SFDX hub management. So as you know, the customers have to enable their hub in their production, ISVs in their business orgs, and admins in their trial orgs. So once you enable your hub, all you have to do is just click here, register your hub through a standard OAuth 2.0 authentication procedure. This is just one click and one time. And once the hub is registered, you can give permissions to all your users in hub. In Schneider's case, because it's a customer, it's a production, so you could see all the list of users that are available in the hub, in the production, and you can give them permissions to create and spin scratch arcs. And this is how we create a scratch arc. So referencing the hub name, it is populated, so all you have to do is just give a scratch arc name, username, edition, you know that scratch arc comes with a limited duration, you load with features and preferences and go ahead and create a scratch arc from here. So this is how we create a scratch arc. So this is good, this is more of configuration management, so this is what everyone can do, but let me show it to you how do we do more with scratch arc. So let me go to user story management. So my Jira is auto-populated in AutoRabbit. So the ALM type is Jira. The ALM project that I'm working on, the user story that I'm working on is DX Workshop, and the sprint that is planned is DW Sprint number 1. So I can go ahead and get all the user stories which are assigned in Jira for the particular workshop and for the particular sprint. All the user stories are auto-populated. So there are 2 things that we can look at from here right now. So in case, if you want to assign a scratch arc to your particular user story, load a metadata, load data, and then also load custom metadata, and then create and do a development. So let me show it to you. So this is one of my user stories for which the scratch arc is not assigned and neither a branch. So I can go ahead, quickly assign a scratch arc to this particular user story and start my development, right? So let me show you a scratch arc for which the user story is already assigned. So this is all happening live, so it would take a few moments. Okay, so here you go. So this is the user story for which the scratch arc is assigned, DW23, and the repository, and the branch to which the code gets committed. So in your scratch arc, assuming that you have made some changes, probably a class or something that you have changed, and if you want to even add a custom code from another source to a scratch arc, you can just click on load metadata, select the source org from which you would want to load the metadata to your Scratch org for your custom metadata development. So you can load from it here and also commit the code from the Scratch org to your version control system in a click of a button. So you see the Scratch org on the screen. Author is me, whom I'm trying to develop in my Scratch org, the repository to which it is mapped, and the branch that it will get committed to. So I will go ahead and click on Fetch Changes that I have done in a Scratch org for today, or just leave the filter and just go ahead and get all the changes. Just to remind you guys, this is all happening live, so it would take few moments to populate. So as you see the live ticker that's talking to the Salesforce org, getting all the information, all the changes that are performed in your Scratch org will be listed on the screen. You'll be able to cherry pick the components and then do a quick commit to your version control system. And also in the bottom, if you notice, so assuming that I made a class change in my Apex, in my Salesforce org, Scratch org, I select this class. I select the label type ALM. As you see, the label type is ALM already populated. Everything is written. I just have to change the status of my ALM user story right from here. So what it basically does is, from here, I'm committing a change to version control system, changing the user story status, and also can implement a gate. So this check-in can be validated against any of your deployment org before it actually goes to version control system. So you can validate this against a static code analysis, which gives violations on all your classes. Second, you get a test coverage and code coverage for all these classes, and also you get to see your differences. And this check-in can be sent for an approval. Once this is approved, only then can get committed to a version control system branch. And from there, you can go ahead and create one CI job, which will pick the changes from the branch and then move it to your destination environment. So this is DX and more from AutoRabbit.
So what I just wanted to add that with this, it actually makes it a lot more easier for the developer to actually check in their code, because the complexity behind using CLI for spinning up a new Scratch org is kind of abstracted from the developer altogether. And that was very important for us, because we wanted to make it as intuitive for the developer and as easy for the developer to actually do this and check in his code and spin up the Scratch org, et cetera, because retraining them on CLI and all the other complex things that you would need to do, we weren't very sure whether that would really happen so easily with the developers that we had. So with the interface that AutoRabbit provided, it made it very easy for us to actually train our developers to actually use AutoRabbit to complete the story end to end, right from the Jira story till go live.
Thank you so much, Ram.
Yeah.
We are open for questions.
Sure. Yeah, and what we'll do is we're about 10 minutes away, so we welcome any questions now. So a couple of things we have broken down into 3 different parts. One is in terms of, especially what we are seeing from DX perspective is that it's not just about the 32 or 42 commands that we have that we kind of constantly have to write, starting from the time when you have sfdx / create Scratch org all the way. Then more importantly, you would have to kind of populate it, and you would have to have some semblance to what you're doing, meaning that there has to be a context to the Scratch org that you're creating. Otherwise, it'll be like a new dev org that you get without any context. The developer will face the same challenges. So essentially what you're seeing is these 7 buttons. I think the 6 buttons are the key. So first is you can manage your DevOps, your Dev Hub, to manage your environment with hubs and all your Scratch orgs. Number 2, what you do is you can kind of create and spin up a Scratch org with a click of a button. But more importantly, this is where the provisioning comes in. In the previous slides, what we're showing is that you can kind of get relevance to the scratch org by getting your metadata and a sample of your data, as long as the admin or your release manager configures it. A new developer, when spinning up a scratch org with the click of a button, he would have a relevant scratch org, which is kind of very close to your either production or something like that, that he can make quick changes. And ideally, it is available for the lifetime is about 7 days. So in day 1 or day 2, the developer finishes his story, or day 4 he finishes his story, and then gets all the changes, all the metadata, all the classes and components into your mainline code, which will be a successful form of CI once you get there. So everybody is included from day 1. Everybody is kind of contributing to the mainline code, so your release velocity goes up. Anyway, at this point in time, anything else that you would want to add, or?
No.
Okay, perfect. So thanks, guys, and we will take questions if it's there. Otherwise, thanks a lot for joining and taking your time off, and hope you have a great Dreamforce. Thank you so much.